You are listening to the Push Media Podcast Network.
This is good shit.
How stupid dumb big my room's got rooms.
Ha ha! It's the snowman! Yeah!
Got a rooster in my Rari might be your mom. Because that's the only woman I ever want riding passenger in my whip, and that's the only woman I let ghost ride the whip. Many have asked, many have applied. Many pretty little things have said, Colin, please, can I ghost ride your Kia? And I said, hell no. Are you someone's mom that I'm trying to offend currently? Or more of a symbolic mom that just represents a feminine energy in your household that I am secretly fucking real good? How does any of this relate to what this episode will be about? The good news is, and this is pretty on brand for us here at the show, not at all. Very little. Because I don't know how to open things. And the world is fucked. And it is very hard to come out and loosen up the crowd, get them warmed up with news about another pandemic. Or rich people eating people. Or Russia, or China, or the president saying he had cancer by accident, apparently, and bunch of other weird shit going on. No one can really just walk out, cold open a crowd and say, hey, everybody, keeping all of that in mind, how's everybody feeling? You like Young Jeezy? Well, good, because I have an absurdly specific reference that probably, based on Spotify statistics, and who could trust those, isn't going to land with you anyway, but,
Ha! Yeah! It's the snowman!
So, instead of addressing all of the impending doom, how about that? Because it's all there. And how about that for another Young Jeezy reference? Because that is a song of his. And you would know that if you were a diehard Young Jeezy fan. And if you were a diehard Young Jeezy fan, you would know he doesn't even go by Young Jeezy anymore. He just goes by Jeezy. And if none of this is landing with you, I still don't care. Because I'm prolonging the inevitable, which is, at this rate, the long sleep for all of us at current actionable levels at those in charge. China has been China, and particularly Chinese as of late, watching Jay Coyle for a formality at this point, but China been feeling themselves. Because they've been overexerting. They've been putting that yen to good use. They've been saying to Russia, hey, you're in the middle of a complete nonsensical, potentially cataclysmic for the whole earth war. We're going to partner up with you and give you any of the resources you need. You need some money? We'll give you some yen. We don't have money. We have a stupid, useless thing that resembles money, and we call it something that sounds like a condiment, but we'll give you as much of it as you want. And Russians being Russians were like, all of that sounds great. Thank you. So they've put a lot of their energy and time behind helping Russia do whatever the fuck Russia's trying to do. Now, they've also, for a while, have been saying there is only but one China. And by that, they mean the people of Taiwan, and John Cena 100% agrees with the Communist Party here, are not existing. They are not real. They are essentially Jews in 1940 Germany. They are non-existent. They are an issue. They are what the Communist Party consider Uyghurs somewhere else in China, I think. I do my best to keep abreast with the news of the awful things the Chinese government does, but you have to keep in mind, if you're listening and you're someone who's like, wait a minute, that's not right what he just said, or that's not exactly what they're doing. I have no idea what I am talking about. I literally have no clue, but I also know way more than you, and I'm not lying. So, keeping both of those things in mind, here's the latest fucking Chinese thing out of China. So, because China has been feeling itself on a global stage, extending money to Russia in whatever they want to do, they've also been beefing up the military and getting real fucking cheeky with us regarding Taiwan. Because China believes the people in Taiwan are not Taiwanese. They are simply, at this point, a commodity that could be mined and put in a factory to continue to build more iPhones. They don't think Taiwan should should exist at all. They don't believe it was ever separated. Now, we as Americans, and this is something I'm very proud of, think the opposite of the Communist Party in this instance. We think it is a nation of sovereign people. We think when we hear Taiwanese people, we think, oh, that is actually a thing. That is actually a type of person. That is a thing that exists with a word that has definition I've heard before. I don't agree with the Communist Party's belief in that is a made-up nonsensical word and whoever has said it should be put into an oven. I don't agree with that, but John Cena does. Now, what's fucking alarming is that it seems like China has come to the revelation that they have maybe been overextending themselves. They have been offering money to people all over the world. They've sent money to Africa to try and get a foothold there, and like every other country in the history of the world that's gone to Africa, they fucked it up a little more. Now, they're telling us they will attack us if the United States follows through and executes the arms deal that we just made with Taiwan. Point is, China been talking big shit lately, and I have been telling everyone as much as I can. Now, it seems like the Communist Party has realized we have to put our money where our mouth is. And in this case, literally, because there's been video surfacing now that the banks in China have decided that the money of citizens which sits in their bank is now theirs. It is now an investment product. It has just changed. It is no longer money. It is no longer yen. It is no longer theirs. It is now property of the banks. Your fault, bozo. You shouldn't have left it here. They went to the bank, the good Chinese people of Huashangjie Kualu village, and said, I would like to take out 7 billion of my yen because I would like to make dinner for my family. And the bank said, what 7 billion yen? And all of this hypothetical interaction, of course, happens in Mandarin or Cantonese, but for the sake of this all making sense, I'm going to continue to speak in English. That's the only reason, because I do speak very clear and perfect Mandarin, like John Cena or Mark Zuckerberg. My Mandarin, and dare I say, I'd put my fucking Cantonese up against John Cena or Mark Zuckerberg. That's how serious I take Asian studies. I take it as serious as any suburban white kid going to a liberal arts college in central New Jersey would minor in such a study. That's how serious I take this shit. I understand anime and I like it. Psych, it freaks me out and all of it's weird, and we should quell everything to do with the culture before it consumes us, which it has proven to do in mass. That's all. It's concerning. That's it. I'm just saying, the citizens of China had money in a bank, and the bank said, we don't have it anymore. And then the Chinese government said, do you have a complaint? Well, here are the fucking tanks. What was your problem again? Ain't great. Ain't good. But let's not dwell on the Chinese because, shit, there's a lot of them, And I just mean statistically, population-wise. Let's instead talk about something interesting. I loved the Lone Ranger movie. I am lying directly through all of my teeth. It was a terrible, atrocious thing. And then I thought, is there any other Arm&Hammer movie that might be good? What else is he known for? He got pretty popular for that vaguely Italian movie where the legal adult had fucked a child. I know that was pretty big, but I don't speak Italian nearly as well as my Cantonese, so that's why I didn't watch Call Me By Your Name. Make sense of what I just said. And then he was in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which literally Guy Ritchie, do better, and then his response to that was, I'll go direct Aladdin. Arm&Hammer is someone I realized after looking into, I thought was a giant movie star, but he really isn't. He's just not. He was in The Social Network, which was great, but he played the twins. And I'm sorry, I don't want anyone to feel judged by this, especially if you are a twin. But this is just my opinion, and don't take this the wrong way, and I mean this as respectfully as possible. Anyone who's a twin fucking creeps me out. Get away from me. Who do the voodoo that you do? Do you understand me? Why are there two of you? I've seen Parent Trap, and I know it ends with an adorable redheaded actress converting to Islam and abducting children under the guise of adopting them. No thank you, twins. Both of you back under the stairs. That's it. So the roles that Arm&Hammer has had are not actually that big. And then, of course, he had the whole problem where he said he likes to eat women. And, you shouldn't judge people. You certainly shouldn't kink shame. I mean, for Christ's sake, it's 2022. But he did say, I like to eat people. Now, we all remember this. It doesn't necessarily mean he's actually a cannibal. He could be, and most likely is, engaging in some weird sexual fantasy, which, again, I'm not even allowed to say is weird because it's 2022. You pig. You ignorant, pompous pig. But the bigger story that happened more recently related to Arm&Hammer was that he was spotted selling timeshares in the Cayman Islands. And you know these stories where you see like former TV actor or like the guy from Family Matters was bagging your groceries, and then it becomes this whole debate on Twitter about like ha 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 because people love to see people fail, or other people saying that's a good honest job, a hard day's work, a meaning of a hard day's night, or whatever the fuck the Beatles were talking about. That debate is familiar. And to just set the record where I stand on it, because all of you have asked, I agree, a job is a job. It's a good, honest thing to do. It's fucking shitty to make fun of someone who used to be noteworthy for something doing an honest job now. Look at any car dealership. Odds are they are probably owned by someone who had a cup of coffee as a catcher in the major leagues. Get over it. Money is money. It ain't yen. Be fucking thankful. So that's usually how I feel when these stories happen. And then you found out that Robert Downey Jr., who I fucking love, Iron Man, the coolest Sherlock Holmes there ever has been and ever will be. And that was something Guy Ritchie actually executed correctly. So that can be done as well. Robert Downey Jr., it was revealed, has been financially supporting Arm&Hammer. Which, and this is where I started to think, all right, he definitely eats women, and I'll explain why those two things now make sense. Arm&Hammer accused of eating, and this is apart from the fact he literally put in a text message using both of his thumbs, and I quote this, 100% am a cannibal, end quote. But that doesn't mean anything. But Robert Downey Jr. has been financially supporting Arm&Hammer, paid for his stay in a Florida rehab, which is weird because none of the controversy was he's an alcoholic, it's just he might be a cannibal. And unless it's a rehab for cannibals, which since this is in Florida, I cannot rule out confidently. Sure, maybe. And now he's living in a house that Robert Downey Jr. owns. And Robert Downey Jr., that's great, man. Second chances are lovely. I'm glad Michael Vick got a second chance. Robert Downey Jr. is a second chance kind of guy. He helped out Mel Gibson, famously. It helped him get back into the spotlight after, he, of course, told his ex-lover and mother of his children, I hope you get raped by a pack of We are gonna beep that, but again, I'm quoting Mel Gibson. Wow, I never thought I'd say, seriously, because I'm not even joking here. I would say that to the judge. Your Honor, I am quoting Mel Gibson. If you will play the recording back, you will clearly say, those are not the words or intentions of Colin Coyle. I am quoting the star of Daddy's Home, and Daddy's Home, too. Anyway, Robert Downey Jr. loves giving people second chances, which is great. And that's because, he crawled into a crib that wasn't his, with a baby in it that wasn't his, in a house that wasn't his, shaking off a meth high, and it kind of freaked the parents out, and then he had to go to jail. But that's just what I heard. I am not old enough to remember those tales. I, of course, know the story. And that's why it makes sense that Robert Downey Jr., now that he's super successful and, centered and fucking Iron Man, he wants to give back to other actors because he gets it. And I think that's good. I think that's grand. I think that's Christian. I think that's good in his soul. I think that's what I want Iron Man to do. That's what I'd want Sherlock Holmes to do. However, I think that privilege stops at someone who says I eat people. Robert, do we know what Army has been accused of? It's not anti-Semitism and road rage. It's not alcoholism or children abduction. It's not meth and showing up to the shoot late. It's eating a woman. It's saying, I am 100% a cannibal. I'm not kidding. These are the quotes of Army. Robert, I think you missed a few glaring clues. And this is coming from Watson. I am Watson. You are Sherlock Holmes. Arm&Hammer is a cannibal. These are the facts. And now I will explain why I am fully convinced of that. And again, keep in mind, I have no idea what I'm saying. But Arm&Hammer comes from a very prestigious family. The family that owns Arm&Hammer, as in the baking soda, which is, again, a very, very sly motif for me to open the show with, ha ha, the snowman. Because, this is a snowman. You get it. I'm sure you get it, white folks. Point is, Arm&Hammer comes from a very wealthy, very, like generationally 5 generations type of wealthy family, okay? There's money to be had. Why would Arm&Hammer, now that the acting jobs have dried up because actresses don't want to share a screen with someone who will eat them, why would he what the fuck did I just try to say? Why would Arm&Hammer need to sell timeshares? He comes from a oil family that also owns baking soda. I don't know much about the world of business. However, I have pretended to on numerous occasions. But I do know if you own both oil and baking soda, the odds are you're fucking filthy rich. Both of those products feel vaguely dirty and very profitable. Now, let me give you a brief background on the Hammer family. Originally, great-great-grandfather of Arm&Hammer was Dr. Julius Hammer, who his claim to fame was committing an illegal abortion on a Russian diplomat's wife, and then that woman died, and he went to jail. Now, while going to jail, Julius Hammer's son took over the family business, and this man was named Arm&Hammer. If you can believe it, this is true. And keeping in line with this is the true part, Arm&Hammer, the business which he essentially took over, was smuggling goods, import-export, waste removal stuff if you live in New Jersey. And the import and exporting was benefiting Soviet Russia. Now, Soviet Russia loved the work of Arm&Hammer so much because he kept coming up with ways to launder money and import and export goods, cash, people, weapons, information, knowledge, espionage, whatever the fuck. He was a Russian agent. That's what I'm hinting at. But not only hinting, because this is mainline history, folks, to quote fucking Alex Jones. This is the Gestalt. Mainline history. Arm&Hammer, the great-grandfather of Arm&Hammer, is referred to in the country of Russia historically and everywhere else in the world, but also literally in Russia, as Lenin's capitalist. He was the only capitalist deemed worthy to do business with the Soviet Union, you fuckface. I'm sorry, I don't even know who I just called a fuckface. And after years of successfully, very, very successfully, so much so earning the name Lenin's capitalist, he decided to make his business of, fake art, racketeering, intelligence gathering, and import and exporting. He stashed a little money and he decided he was going to go legit and try and get away from all this Soviet connection, which little did you know, Arm&Hammer, back in 1920, that Colin Coyle would catch that shit because his MAC-10 said I'm on them things. So Arm&Hammer decided to go legit, and by legit, that meant bribe his way into the oil business because oil was a booming at the time, which he did successfully, God knows how. And then the Arm&Hammer family became an oil tycoon family, and the wealth grew and grew from there. And then Arm&Hammer had 2 sons, Julian and Michael. Michael went on to be Arm&Hammer's father. Julian went on to murder a man and be accused by his daughter of sexually molesting her. Needless to say, when Arm&Hammer died, the patriarch of the oil tycoon and Russian espionage family, he decided to skip Julian in the will, which is reasonable if you kill a guy and rape your daughter. I get it. But just let me point out, that is behavior already prevalent several generations before Army in that family. Keep in mind, there's cannibal accusations. Keep all of that in mind as this gets much fucking weirder. So Julian skipped out on the will, and he's a little upset about that, and that's a shame. And now currently Julian's daughter, who is literally related to Arm&Hammer of oil tycoon and baking soda wealth, works at a Home Depot. I think her name's Susan. That's fucking real. You can fact check me on that. Now, Michael, who went on to be Army's father, was the guy who inherited all of the business, and he was pretty successful. He took an oil business and oil money and also created the Arm&Hammer brand and very, very successfully made a significantly profitable company, a damn near ubiquitous product, and he also had a throne in headquarters that was used for sexual BDSM fantasies. That's also true, too. And again, here we go. So there was a couple years ago lawsuits filed against Michael Hammer for a bunch of, sexual assault, blah, 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 blah. But the interesting thing, and maybe I shouldn't say blah, 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 blah after sexual assault. I realize that might have not sounded how I wanted it to. It's very, very serious. And that's why I'm talking about it. Don't fucking come at me for doing the real work. But anyway, it was reported during one of the legal proceedings that a source, and then this was validated by 2 additional people. So in total, 3 different sources told Vanity Fair that Michael Hammer had and bragged about a quote-unquote sex throne in the headquarters of the Arm&Hammer building. The chair is reportedly about 7 feet high and features a chair with a hole in the seat, a cage underneath, and a hook with the Hammer coat of arms painted on the seat. Now, keep in mind, his son, Army, was accused of being a cannibal. The guy, Michael, the CEO of the baking soda company, had a sex throne where he could poop into a cage where a woman was held captive. That doesn't actually lead to anything. I just want all of you to think about what I just said and keep that in mind, because Arm&Hammer was accused of being a cannibal. So the sex throne guy was a pretty shitty dude, but not so much so where he was not able to quarantine at the family Cayman Island with Army and the rest of the family. So Arm&Hammer spent the quarantine at the Cayman Islands with the dad, who had a sex throne poop chair. And they had a contentious relationship. And this is all according to Vanity Fair. This is not me telling you what happened while I was there because I was invited. This is Vanity Fair. Now, they had a contentious relationship, Michael and Army, that is, but a relationship nonetheless. I mean, they ended up quarantining? How do you make that a verb? In the Cayman Islands together. So you can't hate a guy that much if you're going to at least live at a beautiful beach together. The point of why I stress all of this is Michael was the CEO of Arm&Hammer. He's the guy who inherited Arm&Hammer's fortune and company. The point of that is the family is still fucking wealthy. So I say all of that to say, why is Arm&Hammer selling timeshares? Why does he need an $18 an hour job? His dad owns Arm&Hammer and has so much money he can have a poop throne in the headquarters. Why do you need a regular-ass job, Army? Now, that is a valid question, and I know I'm nuts, and I stress very often, don't listen to me. But this is a real question you have to ask yourself. Why would he need that money? Because he was clearly close enough with his father, who was at this point and is still now the patriarch of this fortune, and close enough with him to quarantine with him and his entire family for months at a time. Now, did they butt heads every now and then? Sure. But what sex freak and cannibal doesn't? They had enough of a relationship where you would think if you completely went broke and the public was, disgraced and disgusted at the very thought or mention of your name, you would think you'd probably give your son a couple bucks when you have probably $1 billion, right? That would be a logical conclusion. But no, they cut him off. They're not giving him any money, which is fucking crazy because now he has to work at a resort selling timeshares. Which, by the way, could you imagine being a couple fresh on your honeymoon? You just, landed this morning. You're checking into the hotel. You're all excited to honeymoon. And then the guy showing you to your room has been accused of cannibalism and was in the Lone Ranger. A24, how are you not making a movie about this? Former disgraced actor, crazy rumors he's a cannibal. He's like stalking a couple on an island, and as the couple try not to get killed and they have a bunch of close calls, they slowly uncover that this guy comes from a long line of rich oil money cannibals. That is some crazy shit that needs to be made the correct way, though. Not the way that Discovery Channel and True TV just announced, I think literally today, that they are producing an upcoming true crime docuseries on the Hammer family. So Discovery Channel will be hearing from my lawyers because I tweeted someone should do this first, and they haven't contacted me yet. But this family is nuts, but they're also rich. Now, Army has been socially ostracized, but he's still close enough with his dad to live with him and his entire family, and his dad has billions of dollars. Now, why wouldn't his dad give him any money? Doesn't that seem interesting? You have to ask yourself that. Why wouldn't he? Well, some of the, answers to that question could be, maybe he's actually fucking eating people. And that's why we're not going to give you any money. We can't have that shit exposed. We can't have people who are already digging, thanks to your dumbass, even further into this family. I mean, for Christ's sakes, I have a sex poop throne with a family crest on it, Army, and we have reporters calling nonstop. Do you want them to see the dungeon? That's really and legitimately truly what's going on here. Think about it. He is a family that has an unlimited amount of money, and he is so hard-pressed for money after the cannibal accusations. And when I say accusations, keep in mind, Army himself wrote on a phone with his thumbs, I am 100% a cannibal. So accusations is already an iffy word here. But he was accused of being a cannibal, and his super wealthy family said, we're not giving you any money. And this is the same family where the public knows, and the family knows, the patriarch has a poop sex throne. So they clearly are okay, at the very least, with some debaucherous shit. And that guy wouldn't give his son any of this money. I would imagine if Army wasn't a cannibal, his dad would know that, and he'd be like, my son's not a cannibal. I'll help you out when you fall on hard times. Or, how about this? Maybe Michael, his limit is actually cannibalism. Sure, he may have a sex throne that has a hole in the seat, which, leads to a cage underneath where a woman is kept 24/7, but he has limits, and he will never eat that woman in the cage. And once he found out that his son is into eating the woman in the cage, which explains why he's kept needing every month to get a new woman for the cage. I mean, where do they keep going? Turns out Army was fucking eating them. It would maybe make sense that Michael found this out and was like, you know what? I'm cutting you off. I can tolerate poop sex throne chairs, but I can't tolerate cannibalism, and I can't keep replacing the caged woman. It's getting expensive. It's a good question. The money's there. Why is he not giving it to him? It's a lot of money. And the guy is a debaucherous fuck. There's no reason for him principally to be against his son being a cannibal at this point. All I'm saying is this is a family of Soviet spies, fraudulent art dealers who have property in the Cayman Islands. Does any of that sound good at all? Does any of that... let me put it this way. We know cannibalism does happen. It's incredibly taboo, but it does take place, like places like Papua New Guinea or somewhere deep in the rainforest where they think it's the year 300 still or something. It occurs. We can conceptualize the fact it does happen. We've also seen documentaries of weird Swedish fucks who answered a Craigslist ad to eat a liver. There's also white people that do it just for the sake of coming, maybe. This is wild, but we'll keep going. So you can understand that people will eat people sometimes. There must be, and there has to be, and Vice has documented some of them that are actually into it. Now, if someone was to be, for the sake of argument, a cannibal, who might that cannibal be? Help me build the profile of a cannibal, of today's modern cannibal. Well, you would need to be handsome, I would imagine. Everyone knows the stereotype of the handsome, good-looking sociopathic serial killer who has a bent towards, a sexual inclination of it, which, of course, that certainly checks here. All right, well... okay, that's not enough. Just because someone's good looking doesn't mean they're a cannibal. Otherwise, I would have eaten your mom by now. You know what I'm saying? Haha. But if someone were to be a cannibal, they'd probably have that sociopathic handsome thing going on. But they would, probably come from a family whose sordid past includes his father owning a sex throne with a family crest on it while he poops into the cage below. And his uncle, this is Michael's brother, Julian, was a guy who killed someone and raped his daughter. So, considering those facts of the Hammer family, that builds credence to the profile that is a potential cannibal. I'm not saying Army's one, but if there were to be one, it sounds like it would be a guy that comes from that family. And then you throw in their Soviet Union connection. I mean, that's a people for the last 100 years that have had atheism beaten into them. And clearly they have taken that passion that they should be extolling on something greater than themselves and put it into the pursuit of human flesh and the hope of orgasm. And that is a proud tradition that Russia carries on up to this literal second, probably. Because they're probably killing an innocent person somewhere near Crimea, and they still have Rasputin's pickled dick in a jar. So, all of that together, to me, makes the perfect cannibal. If that is to be not oxymoronic. If someone were to be a cannibal, it would be a guy that comes from the life that exactly Arm&Hammer has. And again, I offer you the evidence that he submitted with his thumbs via text message that I am, quote, 100% a cannibal. You know, it's wild. And I know you're like, dude, he's not actually a cannibal. People are into weird sex things. People are into the weirdest sex things that you haven't even heard of them yet. Regardless of what the fuck you think you're into, someone's into something that you haven't even conceptualized yet. However, by that same token, that means there are people who are into cannibalism. Do you understand what I mean? There's some people into some shit you don't even know, man. You can't judge people. It's just a kink thing. Okay, what if the kink is actually chewing human flesh, all right? Where do we stop giving people the benefit of the fucking doubt? I think it stops with eating them. That's my line. For example, I'm a very adamant free speech defender. I think this episode and some of the things I've said are very obvious of that fact. I love, appreciate, and put to good use, motherfucker, my right to say whatever I want. I really test the limits of that. I love free speech. Me and Brandenburg went to Ohio to vacation together, okay? That was the nerdiest joke I've ever attempted, but I still don't care because it's my flavor, little bitch. Anyway, I proceed. Do you remember, I think it was like 2012, The Cannibal Cop? It was an HBO special where there was the NYPD police officer who was going to trial because there was a journal where he had wrote extended, downright excellent prose where he fantasized about wanting to eat his girlfriend, pregnant girlfriend at the time, and then once the child was born, he wanted to eat her too. That was written down in his journal. And that became a hot button issue because you had free speech, advocates saying it's freedom of expression. This man's being persecuted for art. This is some progressive, transgressive, maybe this falls under some weird, transgressive Italian art world. I don't know. But, you get my point. There are people who are adamantly saying these are thoughts. You can't be arrested and tried and locked away for thoughts, no matter how evil, sinister, depraved, fucked up they are. You know what I'm saying? You can think whatever you want. It gets a little different when you want to start talking or start doing, but you can certainly think whatever you want, right? Try it. See, you just had a weird thought right now. And I just had a weird thought about your mom. You get my point? However, and again, I love free speech. I'm really that dude. I think the guy who writes in a journal, in a dream journal, "Dear journal, today I'd like to eat my girlfriend. Tomorrow I'd like to eat our child." Or maybe make a sandwich. Or maybe have them make a sandwich. Or maybe put them in the sandwich. I think that guy could be locked away or put in a hole literally for the rest of time. And there is history for that. There is precedent for that. The people who write books where they say they want to eat and poop on stuff get locked away forever. Marquis de Sade was the Frenchman who wrote 120 Days of Sodom. He's the guy where we literally get the word sadism from because he was sadistic. He was into some horrific, awful shit, including poop. Again, I stress poop. As is the Hammer family. Now, Marquis de Sade was a writer. Some people said he's a genius. He's an artist. He's a transgressive artiste. But most of society said, "You're not allowed to poop on my daughter, Marquise. We're going to lock you in the tower and keep you there until you die." I say, excellent reaction, French people. Kudos. Well done. I say we do that to the Cannibal Cop as well. Because I don't think it's a novella. I think it is you fighting the urge to eat your family. And you were probably a good English student. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be locked up forever. Marquis de Sade wrote entire novels that for some godforsaken reason are still taught and bought and read somewhere in the world still. Oh, fun fact, by the way, there was one of those, not hot ones, but you know those quick, like, complex things where, like, they ask celebrities they're, like, brief questions? Well, I saw one, you can't make this shit up. I saw one with Arm&Hammer while I was researching for this episode where he was on Complex and he was asked the question, who, living or dead, would you like to have dinner with? And Arm&Hammer said, I swear to God, he said, Marquise de Sade. He's not a cannibal. He's not a fucking cannibal. Come on, man. He said I'm 100% a cannibal. He wrote it down. Marquise de Sade wrote novels and was still locked away because they were fucked up. The New York police officer who wrote a dream journal about wishing to eat his daughter was also locked up. Army sent a text message. She didn't even bother to write a journal or a book. Look, I know it sounds crazy. I know you shouldn't rush to the wildest, and I know it's tempting, but you shouldn't rush to the wildest explanation for something because it's probably not that. But I think you should really, like, reassess what your process is for determining what's most likely. Because it's truly not objective to say, oh, this person's a cannibal. But that's not real because most people aren't cannibals. What are the odds of that? That's not objective when you look at the additional evidence of, like, he comes from a family that performs illegal abortions, has sex thrones, murder runs in it, incest, all of that. All of a sudden factors into you thinking, well, what is more likely? The fact that he wrote a text message saying I am a cannibal and factoring in his family history and background, and we all know mental illness runs in families, what's more likely, that he's just kidding in these thousands of text messages where he says I am a cannibal, or the pictures of him, like, you know, with meat and shit, really weird, creepy shit? What's more likely? All of the evidence that the internet is using to suggest these cannibal rumors is true, or they're completely fabricated and he just has a weird little sex kink thing, you know? Who doesn't have that? What's more likely? Literally ask yourself, what's more likely? Is he just into some really weird kinky thing? Does he have a cannibal kink? Which, by the way, apparently people fucking have. Or is he actually eating people? Does he come from a family that might actually do that? Checks every box, every prereq of behavior that would necessitate the willingness to eat a person. And then the fact that he's so broke and cannot get $1 from his uber wealthy family that is headed by a guy, his dad, with a poop sex throne, not a single dollar can be given to Army. So much so, Army has to get a regular day job hawking timeshares. Still in a motel, so there's a sense of anonymity and strange sex stuff going on, I imagine. But what's more likely? He has a cannibalism kink and some text messages unjustly, and I mean, if this is true, in the most ungodly, unfair way, cost him a life, or he eats people. He eats people because his wealthy family cut him off. His wealthy family has continued to just do other weird, strange sex things inside the baking soda headquarters. And again, I want to stress, Army said, I literally 100% am a cannibal. It's a funny, wild time because it's hard to face the facts that it is, at this point, I think, more likely than not, he's a cannibal. But these are weird times. There used to be a time where conspiracies were not popular. You had a tinfoil hat and you sounded insane. But then we found out there was an island in the Atlantic Ocean where billionaires, actors, scientists, and other leaders of nations came to fuck children. You know, so what's off the table now? And if I may just draw another connection to this, that was also happening in a neighboring island, Epstein and Little St. James. And that is something that happens, man. This is the willingness of the people in that world. So, like, why wouldn't he be, literally tell me one good reason why Arm&Hammer wouldn't eat a person. If you can give me one convincing argument for why he is not a cannibal, I literally almost think this. I almost think I could act. I literally feel this way. Like, I feel like I could act as like a junior district attorney and I could get a guilty verdict against Arm&Hammer. I feel like there's that much evidence. I am so convinced, and I don't know if being able to convince yourself of ludicrous ideas is a good thing or a bad thing for your mental health, but thank God there's podcasts now. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I genuinely think I could win in a court of law. I could prove Arm&Hammer is a cannibal. At this point, I feel like I should add the word allegedly into my accusations, because I don't want to get sued.
Ha ha! Yeah, it's the snowman.